Good evening and welcome to In Conversation. I'm Lynsey Lawrie and today we welcome Sandra White SNP MSP for Glasgow Kelvin to our Glasgow studio. Sandra, you've been an MSP since the Scottish Parliament was reconvened in 1999, first as a list and then elected as a constituency MSP in 2011. How do you feel the Parliament has grown and developed over the years?
Evening, Lynsey, and thank you very much for inviting me along here tonight to have a chat. I feel that the Parliament certainly has developed, it's grown. Legislation we've had from Westminster and more powers, and certainly people are much more comfortable, elected members even, are much more comfortable with the way the Parliament works. At first, obviously, it was new to everybody. Now, as you might say, an old hand, we've got a way around it, and I think we're always in hand for any new MSPs to come in. Whether we give advice that's good, I don't know, but we're always there to give it. And I think we've grown along with it. The elected members and the people of Scotland have grown along with the Parliament as well. Much more accessible to everyone, and I think much more transparent as well.
Brilliant. What would you say the differences are that you've observed between the work of a list MSP compared with your work as a constituency MSP?
I feel there's a great deal of difference, and I really admire all the constituency, all MSPs. But there is a difference in being a constituency MSP. Certainly our workload has absolutely grown. We have thousands of inquiries. I think it's probably first port of call, your constituency MSP. Whenever we get invited to schools or whatever it may be, tends to be the constituency MSP they will ask, although they do ask list MSPs also. Yeah, there's a much more involvement with your constituents. It's more hands-on, and I think I see a real difference in having been a list MSP for a long time, and then a constituency MSP, much more a one-to-one with your elected, me as an elected representative and my constituents.
Wonderful. Well, moving on now to the budget, what would you say your thoughts are on the Scottish Government's draft budget that was delivered by Derek Mackay on Thursday?
I think it was great. Yeah. Obviously people would expect me to say that, but I certainly, even obviously as a member of the government party, everyone, we went all party to everything that was coming through in the budget, and I thought it was absolutely marvellous, a stroke there by Derek, considering that, we only get X amount of money from Westminster, there's austerity, the cuts that's coming to the Scottish Parliament, we had to do something. And I'm pleased that we've moved it with the tax situation. When you think, people on £33,000 a year won't be affected by the extra taxes, only if you earn over that. And some people on a lot more, £44,000 a year, will only have to pay something like £70 extra a year for tax. And I've really been surprised at the amount of people who have emailed, texted. I haven't had anyone apart from the usual suspects, i.e. the Conservative MSPs, saying that it's a bad thing. Everyone has said, if I earn a wee bit, I want to put it back to society. And I think that's great because it's a mindset. And to me, that's the most important thing. There's a mindset there from the Scottish people that says, if we've got a wee bit more, we want to share it. And I think it's wonderful. I really think Derek, and I was with Derek yesterday, and I congratulated him on that as well. I think everybody else did too. I think he pulled a masterstroke on that.
And would you say that there's any outright winners, and if not, like who would the losers be?
I'll pay extra tax, £2.60 extra a week. I'm one of the fortunate ones that can earn that amount of money to pay. I'd be happy to pay even more than that. It wouldn't bother me in that respect. So I don't think there's any losers out of that at all. If you're earning £500,000 a year, surely you would want to give some back to society. You actually look at the situation with tuition fees, free personal care, free prescriptions. I think overall you get a great deal if you live in Scotland, and I can't understand people that would be saying, I'm all right, Jack, because it's for everyone. And from the very beginning, even before I became a politician, I always believed in the fact that you live in the society you deserve, and if you don't want to help people, well, the society that you live in, personally I don't want to live in that type of society.
Would you say there are any dangers in balancing the funding gap caused by cuts to the Westminster Block Grant, using the increases in income tax rates and bans
That was always a worry. When we were looking at it, that was always a worry, that if we raised income tax or we raised any extra money, then the Westminster government would take the money away from us. So therefore, there's no political party in the world going to raise taxes or anything when it's going to be taken away in the one hand. So John Swinney was fantastic in that with a no detriment clause. So therefore there's no detriment in that. So they can't take that money away from tax. The only difference would be that when they move the bands down south, you know, in the rest of the UK, they move the bands down there, ours will be slightly.
How damaging would you say a hard Brexit will be for Scotland, Sandra?
I think it will be very damaging. It's already damaging just now, the uncertainty. We have over 6,000 people here in the Glasgow Kelvin constituency who will be very adversely affected, you know, with a hard Brexit or any form of Brexit at all, but particularly a hard Brexit. We've had contact with them, regular contact. I've emailed, written letters, met with people as well. We've had a public meeting with the local MP as well as myself, and people there too. They're desperately worried that some have lived here for 20 years. Lots of them work in the university. Obviously Glasgow, here in Kelvin we have most of the universities, Glasgow and Strathclyde and Caledonia as well. So we're going to lose these people and they're really, really frightened. We also have lots of people who work in care homes who obviously are frightened as well. So I think it will have an absolute devastating effect, and that's only in this particular area of Kelvin. If you're talking about further afield in the rural areas, you know, already they're looking for people, you know, the Clyde Valley, Perthshire, these areas with the berry picking, etc. They're crying out for people now. They can't get people to come in because they're too frightened that they won't be able to live here. So it'll be devastating, and if you want to go even further than that, you look at the trade as well. You know, the tariffs.
What about in the Westminster power grab, like an attack on the sovereignty of the Scottish people and the authority of the Scottish Parliament? How can the Parliament resist changes to the Scotland Act being unilaterally imposed by the Tory government?
I raised this months ago. I was fortunate that through the committee I'm on, I was down in Westminster a good few months ago before the Brexit talks started, and after the committee had a wander around Westminster, and I happened to pick up a paper that talked about Brexit and the Henry VIII powers. And I came back up on the sleeper on the Monday, and we had a debate on the Tuesday about it. So I had this first hand, and it mentioned in this paper, which has obviously been floating about Westminster for a while, the Henry VIII powers. We raised this at that debate, and obviously Mike Russell is pushing that now. But you know, the more they push this to dissolve the powers of Holyrood and dissolve the powers of the Parliament, there is, as far as I'm concerned, and lots of others there, pushing us towards independence, which for me is great. I don't mind. Obviously that's what I've joined the SNP and worked all my political life for. So I think Westminster's got to sit back and have a wee look at this. The more they push the Scottish people, look what happened after the so-called vow and the promise, when there was this huge tsunami, if that's the right word for it, huge tsunami of SNP MPs returned. That was a complete backlash by the Scottish people to say, you're not fooling us again. And I believe this will happen if they keep this going on this way to take powers away from the Scottish Parliament. I think the Scottish people will not allow them to do it.
Exactly. If we can just move now on to the subject of Catalonia. You recently travelled there to observe the independence referendum. Do you feel it was important to have the presence of international observers there?
Very much so. This was the second time I had been there. We have a group in the Scottish Parliament which is affiliated to the ICEC, which is International Observers in Europe, and ARCI, who organises this particular one. I'd been before, so obviously when this referendum came up, they'd asked if we'd go again. And even on the ground, the importance of international observers, we were at a school, people were very worried the police would come along. We were sort of a stopping off point for them. They would come up to us and say, "You're international observers, can you tell me if I'm able to vote here?" We had a number of ladies, one of the schools round the corner from us, the police had arrived there and confiscated the ballot boxes. So we were able to witness this, and also the fact that the people came back to our school and they thought, "Can we vote again?" So obviously they came to us as international observers, and we said, "Well, no, you can't vote again, I'm sorry." And they said, "But they've destroyed our vote." I said, "Well, we don't want to do anything illegal." So it was very important that we were able to witness everything that went on. We could give people advice, and in the school we were at, we were fortunate we didn't get raided, but the feeling of the people, it was a strange atmosphere. They were very happy and joyous, but still at the back they knew the police were, you know, about in the area, and they could come and talk to us. So much so that when we tried to go for a cup of coffee, they wouldn't let us out of school. Not forcefully, they just said, "Please don't go," because they thought because we were there as international observers, the police wouldn't come to the school. So they brought us coffee and sandwiches, etc. So we never left the school at all. The folk were absolutely fantastic, from young people to older people, even no voters, by the way. There were a number of people who came in and voted no. We spoke to them, and they said that they thought it was their right to be able to go and vote. Even though they didn't believe in Catalonia having independence, they didn't think the way the police or the government in Madrid was handling it was correct. So therefore they came along. One chap had the Spanish flag on him, and all the other people in the school we were at, it was just outside Barcelona, they clapped and cheered them for coming in. It was wonderful the way they behaved. Very, very, you know, well-mannered resistance. People had slept overnight to protect their schools. Hundreds of people stood outside the schools to ensure that they had a lookout, basically. If they saw the police coming, then they had mobiles, and it was, you know, relayed to everyone in that place, the four corners, you might call it, where we were. But really important, because after when we came back, then we had to fill in an official form. So we were able to say where we were, what times, what happened. It was really to protect the folk from Catalonia, the government, and also the people who voted, that it was done correctly. So it's really important, and that's one thing I would make a plea to anyone that's listening to this, particularly in government, whoever the, you know, higher up in government, higher up than I am. We need to get international observers. The next referendum that we have, we must have international observers. We had observers from Catalonia, but they were voluntary. We had some Russian observers as well, but nothing official. We need to make sure it's official the next time that we have a referendum, so that they can actually see what's happening. I mean, we signed, you know, boxes, we looked, we ensured, we stayed till all the whole count. In fact, what they did was, once the polling station was closed, they padlocked the gates, they turned out all the lights, and then we went down to the kitchen, because we're frightened if, you know, the police seen them, they would come even at that late stage and take the ballot boxes. So we observed them counting the ballot boxes. We were able to say that's correct, these are the no votes, these are the yes votes. Everything was done absolutely correctly. And we need that in Scotland if there's another referendum, which there will be. But we need to ensure we get international observers there.
Yeah. And we know, like, some of the mainstream media outlets downplayed some of the violence. Did you actually witness any of this?
I didn't. The only violence that we saw was basically from the people that were in the school whose friends were being attacked, who were, pardon me, shown us it on video. And one of the girls that was there spoke to us. She was very upset. You probably saw it on the TV, the girl that was pulled down all the stairs and had all her fingers broken. Well, she was on the phone to that girl, and she was also sexually assaulted, by the way. That girl, she's put a complaint in, an official complaint into the law, as it stands over in Spain, unfortunately, at the moment. And there was people openly crying because it was only around the corner. These schools were being attacked, so they knew their neighbours. Very, very much, you know, a very close-knit community in these areas. All villages, streets. Not huge big areas, small communities who knew everybody.
And did you feel that the October the 1st referendum was free and fair and a true representation of the views of the people of Catalonia?
I think it was, having observed the first one, you know, a number of years ago. It was conducted in much the same way. Basically, it was conducted, conducted them all so well, but they knew that the Spanish government were there watching them. A number of occasions we were to have meetings and the places had to get changed, so we had to move from one place to another. It didn't deter them though, they still went ahead and did it. There was absolutely no resistance from them whatsoever. We were told if the police turned up, we were just to stand there with our hands above our head, not to resist, not to do anything like that at all. So the perpetrators of any of the violence, you know, were obviously the Spanish police. We spoke to firemen, we spoke to their own police there, who were absolutely revered by the people in the streets. And what happened, whenever you saw a police van, as we did when we were in school, coming along the street, the local police came along as well, and they sat in their vans at the bottom of the street, and it gave people there a bit of comfort to know that they were there. And then obviously Spanish police would go somewhere else, and unfortunately round the corner from us, and they raided that school and one across the road as well. But I think it was conducted fairly. The people that we spoke to were all officials of the Catalonian government, our equivalent to civil servants. We went and spoke to them, they told us what was happening. If we were ever concerned or something, we would talk to them and they would say, well, this is right or this isn't right. So it was conducted absolutely to a T, the way it should have been conducted, apart from obviously the Spanish police. That was a big worry. They targeted the biggest schools because that was their first target, to target them, thinking, well, if this school's got a number of thousands of people in it, then that means the vote will be lost. And what the Catalonian people did was basically they worked out the percentages. If this was a percentage of a school, you know, the vote that was cast yes here, that would be roughly the percentage that was cast yes elsewhere. So yeah, it was fair, and they worked very hard, and you know, I can't praise them enough for how well they organised it. Absolutely fantastic, and I think we in Scotland could learn from them.
Yeah, and I mean, you've mentioned quite a lot already about the international observers, but do you think that do you have any concerns really that the Spanish government is not accrediting international observers for the 21st of December Catalonia elections?
Yeah, I mean, earlier on you spoke about Brexit and how that's affecting. I don't know how many people, myself included, I must admit, I'm very much an internationalist and a European, but after the situation where the European community will not even come and protect or even come out in favour of, you know, the Catalonian result, or even the Catalonian people, condemn the violence, I think it's a worrying time for Europe. And I really think, you know, the EU and the Commission have got to look at the situation in Catalonia and the way Spain's handled it. I mean, it's absolute fascism what happened there, and it's happening the same. You've got two old ladies in Barcelona there three old ladies actually, who had their yellow scarves removed from them because they're not allowed to wear yellow now, because that's the colour of Catalonia. They can't have yellow in their fountains in the middle of the squares, because that's the colour of Catalonia. Obviously they've taken over the whole government, so Catalonian government has no money to spend. It's been run from Spain, and my understanding is just a couple of days ago they're bringing out laws against Mallorca as well. Because I don't know what's happening in Mallorca. I mean, I've not been there for years, but my understanding is it's to do with the bullfighting, because obviously Catalonia, you know, have banned bullfighting. They have now reenacted it from Madrid. They use rubber bullets and tear gas. That's banned in Catalonia. So they went against even the laws of Catalonia. Now, if Europe is not going to stick up for them and say, you know, freedom of expression for the Catalonian people, I think Europe's in trouble, apart from anything else.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I think you've given us some...
Oh, thank you. I was just getting in my stride there.
Oh, continue if you have more to say. I'd love to.
Well, I just want to say, hopefully, everything will work out well for Catalonia on Thursday. And if it wasn't Thursday, I would be there myself. But I know a number of people are already there. And my intention is to wear yellow on Thursday. Perhaps I've got the Catalonian flag in the Parliament, see if I can take it into the chamber, but there is certainly not a demonstration or an event. There are going to be people outside the Scottish Parliament on Thursday, just to draw attention to the fact that this is a day that Catalonia is going to vote, and I'll put a motion in to mention it and highlight the fact that this is happening on Thursday, and good luck to them all.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Sandra.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for watching. I've been Lynsey Lawrie, and many thanks to Sandra White MSP. Good day.